everyone. Thank you so much for joining me this evening. I apologize for being a minute late there. I had a little bit of technical difficulty at the last minute. I thought we'd just take a moment and give ourselves permission to deeply settle in, to deeply arrive. So you can notice how you're feeling, what you're thinking. Just give yourself permission to allow all that just to fall away, to fall to the side. I assure you there's nothing we need to worry about right now in this moment. And so I invite you just to join me in this place of peace, this place of openness, in this deep place of beauty. Oftentimes people forget about beauty on the spiritual path. They're so busy trying to escape this world. Can you just wake up to this ever-present sense of aliveness, which is something we feel, something we experience when we're willing to unhook from our mind. Just come into our present experience. By that I mean the direct experience of what you are. So of course this is always the invitation. It's for us to step out of the insanity of our minds and just come into what we essentially are. When you do this, you should find that you're experiencing a great sense of relief and also a great sense of expansion, expansiveness, openness, spaciousness, unity. These are all the qualities of our essential nature. And so I have a topic that I'm going to speak on tonight. Also, I received a lot of questions. I even received a question, a minute or two right before the Satsang, and I was trying to get it to print. So I apologize for showing up a little bit late tonight. And so, I was teaching the other night at my local group here in Durango. And one of the students came and he asked this really powerful question, this really deep question about manifestation. He had been listening to some other teachers on YouTube, and there's different teachers, they focus on different topics. For me, a lot of what I focus on is healing our emotional pain, and through that work being able to step into a deeper sense of self, a deeper sense of indestructibility, a deeper sense of embodiment and freedom. But he was listening to some teachings by Bentinho. Many of you know Bentinho, and he focuses a lot of attention on creating a life, a life that's in alignment with your highest nature. I'm actually going to go visit Bentinho later this week. We're going to have dinner, and we'll probably be talking about these topics. But anyways, so he was asking, because what a lot of people find is, well, different people have different experiences, with freedom, and they have a different relationship with, say, the power to manifest. So I'm going to see if I can tie these two topics together, and I want to start off with, say, the groundwork to being able to manifest. And for me, whenever I speak about manifesting, I'm only speaking about one thing: manifesting your highest nature. By that I mean living in an embodied way, in an empowered way, sharing your beauty, sharing your divinity in this world. So I'm not speaking about manifesting a new car, or a new lover, or a new house, or this or that. All those things are fine to manifest and to get. But for me, my teachings tend to revolve around what does it mean to be human and what does it mean to be free. And so many people teach about manifesting, the law of attraction, these types of things. And when they teach it in a very, how should I say, egocentric kind of way. And so when I'm teaching about it, I want to teach about it in a way which supports our true divine nature, which leads to greater growth, greater empowerment of our divinity here on earth. And if we're here just to get more, the chances are we're going to end up suffering more. And so I want to start off with the teachings on reality, and this has a real deep purpose here. You say, well, Craig, why are you said you're going to talk about manifestation, but you're going to begin with teaching something different, and I'll show how it all relates together. And so the first teachings I like to start with is if you can just simply notice that you have thoughts in your mind, that these thoughts, they come and these thoughts go. You have emotions that rise within your body. These emotions, they come and these emotions go. But there's something here which remains in every moment. And this thing is your true nature. It is your most fundamental essence. And so when you get to know your essence first and foremost, then your spiritual path will be a path of freedom, will be a path of joy, will be a path of lightheartedness, but most importantly, freedom. You see, if you go about the spiritual path with this idea that I must get more, that I must have more, that I need certain things, that I want certain things, that I desire certain things, I have to have this, I want the new car, I want the whatever. A lot of people come to me and they want to be a spiritual teacher, they want to have lots of students, I want to be a healer, I want to be this or that. And I always ask them, well, where is this desire coming from within you? If it's coming from just a place of ego or an egoic need, we want to see that and just let it go. And just come into just a very basic sense of reality. And by that I mean, you feel your feet on the floor, and the floor is reality. Now if you have an argument in your mind about your wife or your ex-wife or boyfriend or former boyfriend, I call that not reality. And that is just passing thoughts that are moving through you. So these thoughts, they come and they go. So if you're lost in a story in your mind that you should have this, that you need to be heard, you need to be seen, that the person you were talking to was wrong and you need to convince them of something, that's all just made up stories in our mind. And so the invitation is, if you want to be free, if you want to be happy, to let go of that story and be with what remains. When the story dissolves, well, there's a sense of peace here, there's a sense of openness, there's this essential nature which is me. There's a floor which is always here. Okay, that's reality. My essential nature, that's reality. All the other things, are not reality. All this anger, angst, emotionality, mentality, beliefs, whatever it is, and that's the world of illusion. So the first teaching is can we begin to know what we are, this timeless essence, beyond any movement of mind, beyond any movement of emotion. So this timeless essence is here, this quiet presence and beauty, which is what you are, is always here, despite any story, despite any thoughts, despite whatever is arising in your mind. So it's good to know that, because when you know that, when you begin to realize that, you begin to step into the land, into the world, of your true divine nature. So it's a beautiful thing for you to wake up to this ever-present reality. And so that's where I like to start the teachings on manifestation, is we are grounded in this deep sense of essence of what we are. And it's good to note that your essence doesn't really need anything. It doesn't need a new car, it doesn't need a new partner, it doesn't need a lover, it doesn't need to be supported, it doesn't need to be the Buddha, because your essence is the Buddha. Your essence is pure freedom. It's overwhelming joy. It's overwhelming abundance. It's timeless, eternal peace, spaciousness, love, wonder. And so, of course, the first step, for me, I always find, well, let's wake up to that. Once you wake up to that, almost all your problems disappear. All your problems disappear. You don't really need anything. So in this space, we live in a space of humility, a space of depth, a space of truth. And so then you may ask, well, what does that have to do with manifestation? And so there's all these teachers, teaching about manifesting. Most of them teach it from a very, how should I say, a very immature perspective, a very immature point of view. And so when we teach, how should I say this? When we're teaching from a place of ego, we'll teach about manifesting, about the law of attraction, from a place of supporting our egoic nature. And so one of the first things I'll say about manifestation is, if we approach manifestation from the standpoint and perspective of ego, it will simply create more ego. If you learn you can manifest a new car, a new house, a new boyfriend, girlfriend, a new pair of shoes, whatever it is that you want, and you're going about it from a place of neediness, a place of desire and greed. And by desire, I mean egoic desire. Then we will just simply reinforce our egoic nature. And this seems pretty clear. And this is what my student, he came to me and he was saying, hey, like, it seems as if there's a lot of immaturity when people teach about this. It's like, you visualize this thing, see it, act as if you already have it, and then allow it to come into your life one day. And again, nothing wrong with it. But if you're going to be talking to me, then of course I want to talk to you about freedom, not necessarily about getting what you want. And so if we go about an egoic way, it's going to lead to more delusion, more suffering. Yet there is this thing, that was once said, I think it was said in the Bible, that we are made in the image and likeness of God. And of course, God has many powers. God has many cities. Cities, by that I mean spiritual powers. If you think about, say, the beginning of time, God is just this vast, empty intelligence, say, perhaps seated there all by herself. And she had a thought. What if there was a world? She created a world. What if there was a universe? She created a universe. What if there was, animals and creatures and beings? And so she created countless beings and came forward in the form of you and I. But she didn't create them, just as these dead, empty objects. She created them in the image and likeness of her. And what that means is that we have the same powers as God. So as a divine being, this may come off as somehow arrogant, but in a real humble way, in a real beautiful way. She created our mind like her mind, which has the power to visualize, the power to bring forth things. Everything in this world first started off as an idea. So my question to you is what is it you're going to bring forth to this world? Are you going to invite in more of your desires? Or are you going to ask to be something greater? To live from a place that's greater than where you are right now? So to me, true manifestation is synonymous with true prayer. In true prayer, we're asking God to come forth, to give birth to a greater part of ourselves, within ourselves and within this world. And so this is the invitation, is can we come into our heart, say, what is it within my heart? What is my true desire within my heart? Again, not the desire to have the new car. What am I here to do? What am I here to give? What am I here to offer? Ever since I was a child, I knew that I was going to be a priest. I didn't end up exactly being a priest. But as a child, I kind of grew up in the Catholic tradition. So a spiritual teacher in the Catholic tradition was to be a priest. So ever since I've been a kid, there's been this true desire to give, to share, to meet others in the realm of our divinity. And so as I got older, I was faced with my humanity, I was faced with doubt, I was faced with insecurity, I was faced with all these different sorts of things within myself. And of course I was faced with all the other things, the desire, to have a family, to have a partner. And of course these things are, say, in opposition to being a priest. But as I became more close and more intimate with this deep desire, it was basically to share in this love of God, to help awaken people to God, to awaken myself to God, and to know this as my nature, to know this divinity as my nature. So when I'm speaking about manifestation, I'm speaking about listening to what's true in your heart, what is deeply authentic for you, listening to your next step on the path, and being willing to say yes to that, to open to that. Be willing to look at your life and say, well, what is in the way here? What's in the way of me becoming what I wish to be? And so I have all these questions. I kind of reduced them down to one giant question. I made some notes on it. So let me just take a peek here. And so I wrote down a lot of tips about manifestation. The first one I already went over is that if we're focused on egoic desires, then we step into the world of manifestation, or manifesting, wanting to create our life. We'll create a life from more ego. But if we create a life, if our truest desire is in alignment with our heart, we're going to create a life of more openness, more love, more unity, more peace, more joy. And then these teachings will serve to open us in a greater way, in a more deeply embodied way. A more deeply embodied way. And so what this teaching will require of us, it will require us to face all of our hopes, all of our dreams, all of our fears, all of our anxieties within us. And so a lot of people teach manifestation that You just put it out there to the universe. It's easy, it's as simple as that, and it just comes right back to you. And that may be true for some things. But I teach about growth. I teach about evolution. And so if we're putting something out to the universe, say for example, you want to be, I get this question, I want to be a healer. Okay. So my first question to you is, have you done your healing work? The person may, they may stop for a moment and say, well, I want to, do the healing. I want to be the person, with light pouring out of my hands and being a level 12 Reiki master or massage therapist or, this or that. I kind of smile and say, okay, well, why do you want that? As we go into it deeply, one of two things will come forward. One is because they want to be seen as divine, because they themselves don't see themselves as divine, or because it's really in their heart to help someone. It's really in their heart to share and to express divinity. In fact, it's in all of our hearts to share and express our divinity. But the question is how are we going to do that? And so if you have this true desire to be a healer, the question is well, have you done your healing work? Have you learned to heal yourself? Have you learned to be open with pain, comfortable with pain, intimate with pain? So this is something that's quite difficult for most of us. I get the question a lot, Craig, I want to be a spiritual teacher. I say, okay. Again, are you comfortable with pain? Are you comfortable with chaos? Are you comfortable with the world falling apart around you? Are you comfortable with the ground falling out from under your feet? Are you comfortable with public humiliation? Everyone wants to share in light. But are we comfortable with all these other forces within this world, which are also God? If you want to express God, a full picture of God, we don't want to just be the one-sided healer which just says, think positive thoughts and everything will change in your life. If you think positive thoughts, some things will absolutely change. But you're not going to outthink your way to God. It's a good first step. And so, one of the things about manifestation is, the teachings on manifesting in a true way is that you have to be willing to face things within your life. And this is no easy street. And again, so many people teach it as if it is some easy street. You think it into existence. And that works great with things which come easy to you. Things which you've already mastered. And so one of the reasons that most people fail at manifestation, and I always find this quite interesting. They say, Craig, I can manifest great in this area of my life, but when it comes to love, I fall on my face. I said, okay, well, let's look at that. Let's go into that in a deep way. And so you have to be willing to look at your shadows. So normally the reason you cannot manifest or you fail at manifestation is because there's a huge wound there or a huge shadow within your psyche, within your nature. And when you fail at manifesting what it is that you want, if it's say for example to have a lover, a partner, you keep finding yourself in these terrible relationships or no relationship. The failure of it, the failing at life, the failing at manifesting, the failing at being empowered, the not getting what you want, is pointing out a huge deficiency within yourself. Not a deficiency within your essential nature, because within all of our essential nature, we are absolutely perfect. But a deficiency in our human nature. this is something that I found within myself. I was able to manifest things about all kinds of things within my life. Then I found myself just banging my head up against a wall, in the realm of finances. When I looked at it more and more deeply, I found that there was an old place within me where I hadn't believed in myself. I didn't think I was worthy, of receiving money, of being paid. And so I just did everything for free. I gave everything away for free, whether it was teachings or sessions. I was always taking the back seat in any argument or anything that happened in life. So when I continued to fail, land flat on my face in the realm of finances, I was realizing that there was something within me, a deep shadow, a deep wound within me, where I wasn't comfortable with money, I wasn't comfortable with power. So I had to do a lot of work around becoming comfortable with power, becoming comfortable with authority, becoming comfortable with standing in my own autonomy. I had to learn to deeply love and trust myself, and deeply love and trust life. And the beautiful thing that happened was the more I loved myself, the more I trusted life, the more I was open to receiving money, and the more money came to me. My financial worries, they all seemed to just dissolve. And so this is a great thing to know that, if we're struggling deeply, with something within our life, that's life showing us that somewhere within us is a lack of belief, a deficiency, a wound, a shadow, that we need to do our personal work around that. So again, I'll just glance at my notes here because there's so many questions on this topic. I think I'm doing a fairly good job of answering it so far. And so again, the invitation here is for you to wake up to your essential nature. So in the beginning of this satsang, I spoke about our essential nature being peace, being openness, about being love and spaciousness. And for most people on the spiritual path, that's easy for them to open to. But I found something real recently, and I was talking to one of my students about this, and we were noticing that he was afraid of being powerful. And many spiritual people are very much afraid of standing in their truth, of standing in their power, of being a big presence. And by being a big presence, I mean being an authority. And not an authority figure like, a policeman or anything like that. But being willing to plant our feet and saying, yes, this is the truth. Yes, it's okay for me to be this big. Yes, it's okay for me to take up this much space and this much room. If you look at someone like God takes up a lot of space. God has endless power, endless autonomy. And again, because we're made in the image and likeness of God, the invitation here is can you stand in your truth, in your strength, in your power? If you look at the life of any spiritual master, you're not going to mess with them because their feet are planted so deep in their truth, in their strength, in their power. And so yes, to live in our true power, to live in our true autonomy, to live in an embodied way, in an empowered way, you have to be comfortable with having a lot of energy moving through your body. You have to be comfortable with being a big presence. So there's quite an invitation here. Giving yourself permission to be this big, to be this huge. So again, most people, on the spiritual path, they step into the realm of the transcendent. Up here, they feel spaciousness, they feel openness. There's a sense that I don't have to believe my thoughts. There's a sense of transcendent freedom there. That feels safe for most people. You're not going to ruffle too many feathers if you stop believing your own thoughts. If you let go of your belief systems and your politics and all that kind of stuff. As it gets deeper, as your realization gets deeper, you come into your heart, you let go of your attachment to your emotions, you're willing to face your emotions, you're willing to heal your wounds, you're willing to do your loving work with your human sense of self. A huge sense of growth there and a huge sense of freedom. When you can fearlessly meet your emotions, fearlessly meet your pain, fearlessly meet your sadness, and meet it all with a sense of love and compassion. And in this space, you're left with a sense of oneness, a sense of unity, a sense of overwhelming love and compassion for all of life. And some people can step into that world. When you come down deep into your gut, a very paradoxical thing happens when you come down deep into your gut and you're willing to deeply let go. What arises is both a deep sense of emptiness, a sense that everything is okay, and also a deep sense of power comes forward. So again, most spiritual people are quite uncomfortable with power. They're quite uncomfortable with being this deep mountain of emptiness. Because what's required of you is for you to show up fully in life. To be a powerful presence of love, of peace, of unity, of truth in this world. So one of the things that I'll say about manifesting, you're manifesting the truth of your heart, the truth of your gut. It says you have to be willing to listen to the voice of God within you. And oftentimes the voice of God asks us to do the impossible. And look what God asked of Jesus. Look what God asked of Buddha. Look what God asked of St. Francis. And because they were willing to listen to that voice of God, not to their egoic voice, but to the voice of God, the world changed, the world evolved, the world grew. So God is asking the same of us. And so for some people, God is asking them to sing. Some people, God is asking them to show up as a parent, a loving parent. And for some of us, God is asking us to come forward and take care of our parents after they were difficult or abusive to us. Sometimes God asks us to just show up and say something sweet, to reach out to someone who's struggling. In our egoic nature, we have all these grand ideas of what we're supposed to do, what our life purpose is in this world. But God is speaking to us constantly. God isn't just asking us to be a great healer or spiritual teacher. God is also asking us to be sweet to the policeman when we are pulled over, to be gentle with the clerk at the grocery store, to bend down and pick up the crying baby. And so the further you go along the spiritual path, the more you realize that this life is not about you, it's not about your desires, but is about this greater desire, this desire of God to manifest herself here on earth in a beautiful way, in an incredible way, and oftentimes in an impossible way. And the invitation is can we listen to this voice? This humble voice. Sometimes it's a very frightening voice. Can we listen to this voice? Frightening in the sense that God often asks us to do that which we are incapable of doing. And so it's quite a challenge what God is asking of us. And the funny thing is the more we listen to this voice, the more we give ourselves over to this voice of truth, the more we realize that what we are, what God is one movement, one force, not two. In the beginning, it seems like that. It seems as if God is coming to us and asking us to do something. And that we have to work hard to do it. That we're doing it to make God happy or to be a good instrument or servant of God. But the more we just listen to this truth of our heart, and again, the voice of God and the voice of our heart is the same voice. It's the same truth. So the more you come internally and listen to your heart, the more you become one with God. The more you become in alignment with the image and likeness of God, the intelligence of God. And so, again, I know I started off saying, yes, I was going to speak about manifesting. And God is just one giant creative force. She's both spacious emptiness and this giant creative force. And we are not separate from her. We have this creative force within us. Her desires come forward through us. The question is can we live in alignment with that? Despite what our egoic nature says, despite if it's difficult, despite if it's challenging. I've had many friends make fun of me for being a spiritual teacher. And it's, when I hear those things that they've said to me, and look at the comments on YouTube or whatever, people call me a crackpot and all kinds of colorful words. And if I approach it from my egoic nature, yeah, that could hurt, that could be painful. But because there's a voice of truth within me that says, hey, this is what your life is about. Your life is about giving. Your life is about sharing. To me, there's no question. I'm going to continue to share. Even if some of my old friends, from childhood make fun of me. Even if I have a 13-year-old daughter who says, Dad, you're an idiot. How can you be a teacher? And so we can't be discouraged. And if we are discouraged, well, what that means is that if doubt rises within us, it means that there's somewhere within us which is insecure. And then the invitation becomes, can I meet this insecurity with love? Can I come into the goodness of my heart? Can I feel the pain of insecurity and meet it with love? Meet it with compassion. Hear it fully. Have a good cry if we need to have a good cry, and then let it go. Let it go. So I'll just talk for a couple more minutes on this topic. I think I got pretty much everything that I was supposed to say. And so, a lot of times people they ask, well, Craig, can you offer some steps? You see, all kinds of books are written about, here's the 5 steps to manifestation or whatever it is, manifesting what you want or how to get your dream job or this or that. And those are all great. But one of the first things that I would say is to ask your heart. Don't ask your mind. Ask your heart. Because if you ask your mind, what you're going to get is that which is unreal, that which is impermanent, that which is transient, it's just passing, and that which is, say, human, egoic. So I invite you, ask your heart, what is my life about? What is it truly about? What is this day about? And look at it from the perspective of how can I give more? Which tends to be the opposite movement of ego, which is how can I give more? And so when your heart's desire comes forward, like I said, for me, when I was a child, I wanted to know, one, what it meant to be free, and two, I wanted to, say, be a priest. So can you visualize this? Can you see this? Can you bring forth this idea more and more? Can you give it more and more of your time and attention? And often people say that's all you have to do, just visualize it and wait for it to happen. But I say you visualize it, and then you have to make the steps towards doing or creating or bringing forth that which is in your highest nature. And if you look at, say, someone like Jesus, he wanted the life of truth. And so he had to visualize himself living in truth. He had to begin to walk towards the truth. He had to continue walking towards the truth despite people throwing apples or tomatoes or whatever it is they threw at him. Despite all the naysayers, despite all the critics, he continued to walk forward. So that's one of the great things about when we see what we want to be, when we see our potential, what we will be met with is all the negative voices within ourselves, all the negative voices around us. They'll say, no, you can't do that. And of course, if you want to be an Olympic swimmer or athlete, you have to walk forward despite all the voices, all the critics. And so if you have places of doubt within you, like one of my students, he's going to go off on his own and begin teaching. And he notices that doubt keeps coming forward. You say, hey, you can't let doubt distract you. You cannot let doubt distract you. You meet the doubt with love, and you continue walking forward. And so this is so important that when the negative voices, when fear comes our way, we continue walking forward, holding our true vision in our mind. In our mind. And if pain arises, if doubt arises, if fear arises, we meet that with love. And also one of the things that we have to remember is that if it is going to manifest, if it is in the divine plan, if it is God's will, it will happen on God's time. And this is a painful reality for most of us. We think, okay, I read The Secret, I put it out there, I did my part, I act as if I already had the thing I wanted, and then it didn't come. And perhaps it wasn't time for it to come. Perhaps you have a deeper lesson to learn first, before this thing to come. For me, I've always wanted to be a teacher, but I had to learn to have a sense of confidence within myself. I had to fall on my face a million times so that I could develop a sense of confidence, a sense of truth, and a sense of strength, a sense of power and autonomy. And I invite all of you just to look at your life. Most of us, if we look at our life and say, well, what's been true in my heart? You say, all these 4 things have been true in my heart. Look at your life and see, have those 4 things happened? Oh, yes. And most of us have had that experience, and we wanted to do this thing. We wanted to be this type of person, and so we gave ourselves to it fully. We can look back now and say, "Oh yeah, that did happen." It's funny how it fell into place. I didn't know how it was going to fall into place, but it fell into place. It fell into place. So, I can remember I was really young. I was like 18 years old. I wanted to visit Colorado. I was living in Ohio with my parents. I wanted to visit Colorado. I wanted to backpack in Europe. I wanted to, follow the Grateful Dead at that time. And, all those things fell into place. One night after work, some guys just came, some friends of mine came and said, "Hey, we're going to Colorado tomorrow. Do you want to go?" Yes. Here I am still 20 plus years later. The Grateful Dead came through town and I went on tour with them. Had a wonderful time. Someone gave me a free plane ticket to go visit Europe. And so these were deep, heartfelt desires within me. Very meaningful experiences for me as a result. But we can often look back at our life and say, "Oh yes, what was true in my heart, it did manifest." Did it manifest on our time frame? Probably not. So we have to have a sense of peace, a sense of allowing and acceptance. And I'm putting it out there. I know that this thing is true in my heart. I'm going to walk in the direction of my truth. I'm going to not let the circumstances and the environment get me down. I'm going to continue walking forward in my truth no matter what. And so in a sense, all of what I'm speaking about is about living a life of mastery, living a life in alignment with our heart. When you walk in this direction, you will become radically more awake. But again, any of these teachings that I offer, if we interpret them from ego, it can just lead to more ego. But if we listen to the teachings from our heart, it helps to open us to greater and greater levels and manifestations and deeper layers of embodiment, of empowerment, and of freedom. And so I think that's probably all the questions all the talking on that I can do. And I just had a couple more questions that I want to get into. And I get this question a lot, and it's a great question. Why do some teachers get lost in their own trip? And I think I talk on this at least once a month in these satsangs. Why do some teachers get lost in their own trip? Again, because many teachers bring forth a certain teaching, and so they kind of get stuck in that world. They get lost in that world. And so the question went on a little bit further, but basically it had something to do with they were studying with a teacher, and this is a great teacher, in the Nondual community, and he'd been teaching many years. At some point he stepped down, but he got lost in his own teachings. He taught in a really fearless kind of way. I'd say almost an aggressive kind of way. But it's because he believed so fully in himself, and he felt that he was going to war with his students, with their egos. So we can get lost in that type of teaching. It can be healthy for a period to go to war with our egoic nature, to plant our feet deep and say, "I will not put up with this. I will not put up with my mind. I will not put up with this level of being." And that can be good, it's just, it's like being really disciplined. I meditate every day. It's something I do not compromise. Now, if you meditate every day, you have a little baby and she's crying and she wants your attention, well, that would be a moment to compromise. There's so many people teach about the world as an illusion. You can get lost in that teaching and get stuck on that level. And so, in answer to the question, Teachers get lost in their own trip because they get stuck. They don't allow themselves to continue to learn, to continue to be inclusive. And so to me, a good teacher is one who has an open heart, who's continually growing, evolving, and who can have an inclusive worldview. A very powerful teacher just focuses on one thing with a laser pointedness, and that can be helpful for a period of time, but again, you can get stuck there and really quickly become a fanatic. Okay, so this is a good one, and I get this question a lot as well. Because in a sense, the person was saying, I don't want to be here anymore, in this world, in this lifetime. I'm ready to be done. I want this to be my last lifetime. I want to live in nirvana. And so that's what most spiritual people want. They want to transcend this world. They want to get out of this world. Because in this world, you get beat up, you get knocked around, you experience pain and confusion. It's quite difficult to be in this world. And just in a real human way, we can admit that. We get sick, we get beat up, get abused. But if you want to live in the world of nirvana, if you want to live in the world of freedom, you don't get there through wanting to transcend and avoid life. You get there from embracing life fully. But freedom is about you going beyond mind and also embracing mind, embracing this world. So you don't get that from avoiding life. The ego increases. The ego effect, it increases, it grows. We're wanting to avoid and escape life. It's afraid of feeling, it's afraid of pain, it's afraid of discomfort. This very paradoxical thing happens. The more open you are to feeling everything, to experiencing everything, the more open you are with pain, with sadness, with grief, with your humanity, the quicker your humanity empties out and dissolves, the quicker your ego dissolves. It's quite a paradox. You embrace pain, and pain disappears, and the one who felt pain kind of falls out of you. The one who's afraid of pain falls out of you through embracing pain. Through avoiding pain, the one who's afraid of pain, the ego, increases. This is the teaching most people don't want to hear, most people don't understand. Most people are afraid of embracing. To be free, to live in nirvana, means you have to be willing to open uncompromisingly to everything. All pain, all grief, all sadness, all rage, all fear, distortion, all the craziness of this world. You must be willing to open to it. So it's a great question. But the way for this lifetime to be your last lifetime, if you look at that, that's the ego wanting not to be here. And ironically, the way the ego actually dissolves is through embracing that fear and showing up to life fully. When you show up to life fully, no ego present. Ego is pretty much dissolved. So it's a great paradox. So the way out is through going in it, going through it. Okay, and again, here's another popular question. Despite all the spiritual work that I do, this pain continues to rise within me. Please help. And so again, that's real similar to the last question. And I say this so often. When we're willing to embrace pain fully, pain dissolves. When we're willing to see with a real depth of honesty the sadness within us, the sadness begins to dissolve. By dissolving, I mean we have a good cry, the pain shakes out of us, we tremble, we sweat, whatever, and then the pain releases. Emotions are healed through feeling them fully, while simultaneously standing in your strength, in your truth, and this deep sense of acceptance of knowing, I'm going to be okay. If you do this work where you feel the pain, but the thoughts come forward that this shouldn't have happened, I didn't like this experience, this person hurt me, they never should have done that, then the pain will kind of recirculate throughout your being. If you're willing to hear the story, feel the pain fully, but see all this and embrace all this from your heart, the pain will leave you, the story will dissolve. And so I said, when you do this work through your heart, by that when I mean, you step into your timeless nature. When you step into that unborn nature, when you step into that indestructible nature, when you step into that compassionate nature, which is willing to feel and hold the space of love while you tremble and shake. Hold the space of love while the story rages through your mind. Then the pain will actually release. And you'll be left empty and free and empowered. I spoke about this a couple weeks ago. Standing there with a strong backbone and open heart. Strong back, open heart is how you meet your pain. What most people do is weak back and semi-open heart. When you have semi-open heart, you feel a little bit of pain, and then you retreat back to ego, you retreat back to your story, and the pain recirculates. People tell me all the time, oh yeah, I feel the pain. And I say, well, by feeling the pain, are you willing to fall on your knees and grieve fully what just happened? Like, for example, I think I spoke about this last time. My father recently died. I got the news. I fell on my knees and I grieved. And the grief came more and more, and I cried and cried and cried. And there was just this deep sense of openness with it all. Deep sense of openness with it all. A deep sense of okayness. There was no argument. If he died, that's what happened. And so can we be willing to be quiet inside and open? And someplace within you says, I can't do this, I can't grieve, I can't feel this pain, I'll be overwhelmed. And I'm always like, okay, then be overwhelmed. See what happens. You will not die. You will not disappear. You may have a good cry. You may have a lot of feeling move through your body. But if you can silently witness that feeling, if you can silently feel all of that energy move through you, you'll notice, and I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm absolutely okay. I'm completely fine. Even if I'm shaking, crying, grieving, even if my father just died, my partner just died. So what I'm asking you to do is to identify with the depth of what you are, the timeless, that which is timeless within you, which is eternal within you, as who and what you are. Identify with the ego. Yeah, the ego is never going to be okay, because the ego is not okay. It's not okay with life. It's always complaining, always arguing, always desiring, always wanting something different, always wanting something more. That's the nature of ego. But your true nature, your eternal nature, it's okay, no matter what happens. It lives, it spans lifetimes. So the death of your father, in a sense, is, I shouldn't say no big deal, but there's a sense of, okay, like I'll see him again. Your death, it's okay, I'll live again. Something traumatic, it's okay, we'll be okay. We will outlive every experience we ever have. And so it's deeply, truly knowing this. I can tell a funny story. I had this deep desire to know a depth of fearlessness. I had a student, he kept coming to me asking me these questions about fear over and over again. teach about fearlessness, and he'd always say, "Yeah, but Craig, what if someone, you know, put a gun to your head? What if you face death? Whatever." I kept thinking about this. I said, "Yeah, I wonder if I face death, how would I be? How would I be?" And this kind of question kept coming to me again and again. Is it true, the depth of fearlessness that I'm speaking about? And a week ago, it's actually a week ago today, I was with some friends. We went on this boat trip. It wasn't long, about 10 minutes into the boat trip. A boat trip, by that means floating down a river, whitewater rapids, here in Colorado, in a raft. And we got into some pretty nasty rapids, and the boat was flipped over, and the boat had oars on it. So the boat flipped under, and I got sucked under. And I came up for air, and I hit my head. I have a big wound on the top of my head. I hit my head on the oars, and I got sucked under again. And I went deep down into this deep quiet, underwater. And honestly, I'm not a good swimmer. And there was just this total peace. Total peace. And I'm talking about total peace in rapids. So my body floated up again, and I was looking to get some air. I hit my head on the boat again, got sucked under, ran into a bunch of boulders, got tumbled all around. My inner thigh got all ripped up, my legs got all bruised. And I came up, got some more air. Actually, that might have been the first time I got air. And one of my friends looking at me, he was holding on to the boat. He looked at me, said, "You're bleeding." And then I got sucked under again. And then I came up and got sucked under by the next waves and rapids. And this happened for a little period of time there. It was definitely a place where I could have easily drowned. I had breathed in water. I was bleeding terribly. I had a concussion. And then I got knocked around again by some more boulders. And the water was freezing because it was snow melt water. Just about 6 or 8 hours ago, the water was actually snow. I'll tell you how cold it was. And so then at some point, I got pushed out of the rapids and kind of swam to the wrong side of the river. By the wrong side, I mean the side which we weren't supposed to be on. And there we were, stuck with a boat, with no oars and no way of getting across to the other side. Now I was just covered in blood just pouring, out of my head, all down my body. There's actually people standing on the other side of the river, just pointing, looking at me, saying, "Oh my God, what had happened to that guy?" And, my body was shivering. My friends were telling me, "Craig, you look really bad. We need to get you to the ER." And yet there was this deep sense of peace through the whole experience, from the boat flipping over, being sucked under numerous times in the rapids. And in a sense, it was facing death. It was completely quiet, completely okay. If I was dead, it would be okay. Completely okay. Of course, my body wants to survive. My humanity wants to survive. It's God's will for me to survive. I still have these incredible headaches from the concussion. Big gash on the top of my head. But there's this deep sense of okayness. And so a funny thing, I started off this talk saying I was going to talk about manifesting. So for me, deep inside, I had this desire to know, can I know peace? Can I know freedom while facing death? And it's not like I, Craig, the personality, knows it. There's something greater than me that knows it. There's something greater that was just completely quiet through the whole thing. Actually, in a very funny way, a lot of people came and said, "Were you just absolutely terrified?" I said, "I actually didn't have any thoughts at all. My only thought was, go toward the light." And the light being, because I was sucked under the river. Go toward the light, go up and get some air. That was my only thought. And there's no fear, no terror, no panic. In a sense, it was a real grace to have this experience, to face this, and just to know that it's okay whatever happens. It's okay whatever happens. And of course, in a real human way, it's good for me to be around. I have some daughters to take care of. I have some work to do here on the planet. But again, from that place of freedom, it's okay, whatever happens. And what we are is eternal, is timeless, is free. So I thought that would be a fun story to share. I have one last question, and I'm just going to read it here. It says, "Dear Craig, I know you are well on this beautiful day. I am too. Thank you in advance for taking the time to consider this question. And this is my first time joining you for the online satsang. Here's my question. In our day-to-day life, should we actively try to teach people the spiritual lessons, gems we have learned on our path to help them expand their consciousness in their own lives, not forced conversation, but an intuitive, active guidance? Or is this not our place and instead more passive presence in the world as we follow our own bliss, minding our own business, enough to help and transform the energy of this world for the better? If we are all one organism, it seems like we would want to raise each other up because we're raising ourselves up. I'm very grateful for this satsang and the opportunity to hear from you. Blessings." Yeah, that's a beautiful question. It's a great question. I think in a sense you already answered your own question. And so the big thing is can you listen to your heart? Can you listen to your heart? So when you're with someone, if your heart is moved to share, then by all means share. If your heart is moved to be silent, then by all means be silent. And someone else asked me this question the other day. It was in reference to their students. They're a teacher, they have students. They said, I pray for my students. I want them to have this kind of life. I want them to have a healthy, happy life. And as he was speaking this, I noticed there was a little bit of anxiety within him. And I said, of course our prayer is that love is everywhere, that love triumphs, that peace triumphs, that everyone we come in contact with is filled with love and light and bliss and peace. But we also must know that if those people are struggling, then that is God's will as well. That God comes to them in the form of struggle, that God comes to them in the form of pain, that they have their own path, that they have their own way, that they have their own time for them to learn their lessons. And so when you truly know this within yourself, there's no anxiety within yourself about sharing or not sharing. There's no anxiety about helping or not helping. Just listen to your heart. If your heart says help, you help. If there's anxiety within you, then that shows that there's a place within your egoic nature which doesn't trust in life, which doesn't trust in the process, which doesn't trust in God's will, God's plan, God's love, God's compassion. And by that I mean sometimes God's compassion means someone's going to get beat up. Sometimes God's compassion means the person is going to almost drown in the river. And that was God's compassion. It was God who sucked me under and beat me up and tore up my body and gave me this concussion. That's God's love. That's God's peace. That's God's bliss. That's God's truth. So can we trust in that God is in charge of this world? And that if God wants to teach someone something, she will teach it to them. She'll show them the way. So if you're moved to share from the goodness and peace of your heart, by all means share. If it comes from a place in your mind of proselytizing, a place that has an agenda, a place that wants to do good, like in a do-gooder kind of way, the do-gooder way, it's like that kind of annoying, person at church who's always trying to help out because they're proud or to reinforce their spiritual ego or whatever people do that for. So if it comes from that place, by all means don't do it, because that's a movement of ego. So again, can you listen to your heart? And your heart will come forward as like a very clear, still voice. Oh yes, share this thing. Sometimes I share things with people and say, "How the hell did I say that?" And they come back and they say, "That was a perfect thing to say, Craig. Thank you for sharing that." I say, "Oh, okay, good. I'm glad I listened to my heart." Because my mind would have said, no, don't say anything, don't share. I tend to be more reserved than not. So yes, listen to your intuitive guidance. That's all, and then we leave the results up to God. We always have to be clear of, is this truly intuitive guidance? Or is this my ego wanting to be seen, wanting to be heard, wanting to be right, wanting to be, the spiritual teacher or authority? To make sure that you have no need in there. So when it comes from our heart, it comes from a place of humility. It comes from a place of peace. It comes from a place of truth. And so this is true with anything in life. Can we listen to our heart? Can we share? Can we meet life from this place? Now, of course, you want to share. Of course, we want to give. Of course, we want to help others not suffer. We have to keep in mind that suffering is also God. God shows up in the form of suffering. To me, suffering is the greatest teacher. When you realize that, you'll bow down before suffering. There's a story of the Buddha who bowed down before Mara. And Mara is it's like the version, like the Christian version of the devil. The devil comes and tempts us. That's a true teacher. A true teacher will tempt us, will bring us to our knees, will challenge us. That's what suffering does. And so can we see that suffering? Can we see that Mara also is God? And from that place, when you know that that's the truth, well, a lot of times we don't want to say anything. But again, God uses us as her instrument in this world. And so intuitively, if it's a thing to say, then by all means speak it. So I want to just thank everyone. Thank you all for all your questions. Thank you all for coming tonight. The next satsang, I don't know if I said this, is June 23rd, I think. Tuesday, June 23rd. These are, of course, recorded, so you can listen to it whenever. I also want to remind everyone and thank everyone, especially the Satori students, for supporting this program. If you have any interest about becoming a formal student of mine, there's information on my website, craigholliday.com. Also, if you offer a donation, that's greatly helpful. It helps me so that I'm able to continue to offer these for free. So thank you all for those of you who do donate and do support this program. It's so helpful. And thank you for all the students who continue to support these teachings. And yeah, I just want to thank you all so much for showing up. I feel so deeply honored to be able to do this. I hope you all have a wonderful night or morning or whatever time of day it is wherever you are. May we all go forward in peace, in love, and of course happiness and joy. Take good care.